Welcome everyone to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. It's your host Travis and John. John, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Today we have Kristina Barlaan on the episode. She is our first female black belt. She is a second-degree black belt under Caio Terra, and this conversation is great. I feel like we always say this.
You always say it for sure.
Whatever.
Absolutely.
But this conversation is great. Kristina did not disappoint. Her wealth of knowledge and the insight that she gives to a lot of things is just great. I absolutely loved it. John, what were some of the things we covered?
We talked about pretty much mental health, maybe coming back, dealing with some injuries. We talked about competition a lot. Talked about a female black belt, what that's like, instructing. I thought she talked about a lot of good things, and she was a pleasure to talk to. I felt like we could have kept talking, which we did a little bit after.
Yeah, but, yeah, we talked actually quite a bit before and after the recording. So, but yeah, it's just a great conversation. She's very open about mental health and whatnot, so it brings an aspect to the interview where she's just very candid about a lot of things, and it's great. I like when people are very open, even about like the not so great side, the side that you don't see on Instagram and the podium.
Yeah, it's not always
like
roses,
that.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, so that was really nice. But other than that, we don't really have anything. Make sure you guys let us know what your favorite part of the conversation is. If there's anything that you guys thought was the greatest. If you guys are watching, you notice that our set has changed. We had to move our office around a little bit. So thank you to them for sponsoring us. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have anything. Remember, follow us Elbows Tight everywhere and drop us a 5-star review if you would like. I would greatly appreciate that. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to Watching at Home. And remember, no oil. No, what am I doing?
I don't know what he's doing.
I don't know.
Go ahead and give it a listen.
Give it a listen. Thanks, guys. Peace. Kristina, how's it going?
Going good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on our show. Like we just mentioned before my awkward countdown, that you are our first female black belt on the show. I'm super excited. So this is gonna be a great conversation.
Yeah, this is what we all do. All female black belts do this. So setting the standards.
Yeah.
So drill it.
Yeah. Right. So how's your day going?
It's pretty good. I started off with comp class earlier this morning. Had a good group come in. One of my friends, she lives an hour away. She's also a black belt, so it's hard. There's not too many of us, right? Just like I'm the first female black belt on your show. There's not too many women black belts in this area in like Northwest Florida, or the Panhandle. So anytime that we get to link up, it's just let's scrap and hair everywhere. It's been great. It's good morning. Good morning.
That's
I'm
awesome.
awake.
Is California, does it have a higher population of female black belts?
Yeah. I mean, especially now, obviously when I first started back in 2007, there were none. But now, there's a lot, or at least a lot of high level or brown and black. Although I feel like in the past few years, a lot of us have moved out of California, either I think COVID kind of messed up a lot of things for everybody. So they had to find work somewhere else or leaving the area. That was the case for me. That's why I'm in Florida now. But yeah, there's a lot. It's not even counting Southern California. Southern California, obviously there's just a ton, but Northern California has a good amount of female black belts there too. We're just kind of spread out. But I mean, if we have a women's open mat, yeah, you could have maybe 4 or 5 if they all come in at the same time, right? And then a ton of brown belts too. So yeah, we're definitely spoiled in California. There's so many.
Yeah, right. And we live up in Washington State, and I don't even think that we have. I've never met. No, I take that back. Heather Wood lives up here, if I remember correctly, and she's a female black belt also. But I don't think we have
Hillary Van Ornum. No, she's in Oregon, or
yeah, I think most of them are actually in Oregon. There's a lot in Oregon.
I think Sonia was the highest belt.
Yeah, Sonia Salem.
there.
Yeah, she just got her black belt.
What about Amanda Lowen? I mean, she moved out, right?
She's in Portland. Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know anything about the
We're so close.
Oregon, Washington, the same thing.
Yeah, right. But so let's go ahead and kind of get into your backstory on how you started jiu-jitsu. We mentioned that you started in 2007. How did that whole come to fruition, you getting into jiu-jitsu?
Well, I mean, I was training Muay Thai over at Cesar Gracie's Academy first, and I started that in 2006. And so it took me like a year of just doing Muay Thai before I actually, picked up Jiu-Jitsu. And yeah, like I walked into that academy only wanting to do Muay Thai, didn't know anything about Jiu-Jitsu. I think I walked in during a Jiu-Jitsu class, and I think Vinny Magalish was like teaching class at the time. And they're like, oh, you have a question? I'm like, no, I just want to do Muay Thai. And they're like, oh, we can watch class. And I'm like, why are you hugging each other? What was that? I don't know what that is. Like they're scissoring. I don't know. So I was pretty into when I first walked into Caesar's Academy. And then I think like after a couple months of doing Muay Thai, my Muay Thai coach was like, hey, you should try out some jiu-jitsu. But it was like NoGi, so it didn't make any sense. He like showed me how to do an arm bar, a triangle, like an omoplata. And he's like, yeah, you don't need to be strong or athletic. You don't have to be big to be good at jiu-jitsu. It's just technique and leverage. That's it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so he had me like go with some of these guys. And at that time there was a female wrestler that was there. And I'm like, damn, this doesn't make any sense. They're all smashing me. I'm just being... I'm like a wet rag just being dragged across. Like I just don't know what this is. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think this jiu-jitsu thing is for me. I'm gonna take a rain check, and I think I like punching people right now, right? And then like 1 year later, like my teammate was like, hey, you know what? I think you should try jiu-jitsu again. I'll let you borrow my gi. And like, all right, and so I borrowed his gi top, was way too big. I got a random white belt somewhere in the back of the gym. Who knows what germs were on it? I didn't care. I wasn't thinking that at the time. I just, all right, you're mine now. And then didn't have pants, so it was like the Sambo style, And then I just started doing the warm-ups and then being able to use the grips. I was like, oh my God, I should have been doing this the entire time. Like I won't say I was pissed, but I was just like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Like, this is all I want to do now. So it took a while. And then once Caio got in, that's when I officially signed up. I'm like, nope, I'm just going to only do jiu-jitsu. I want to do this jiu-jitsu stuff. Like, he's legit. He's my size, and he's beating up these guys who are like 200-pound plus, making it look like it's nothing. Like, and it looks like magic, like he's there, right. And all of a sudden they're like flipped over, and I was like, doesn't make sense. It like defied all whatever made sense to me at the time. Like, oh, big strong guys are good at like fighting sports, right? He was the complete opposite of that, and like I just was like so inspired, and so it was really really easy for me to just like, yep, I'm gonna start doing that. I dumped my boyfriend because he was like not supportive. I'm like, you know what, you gotta go, and he's just gonna stay, and here we are, like. Was it 15 years later?
Coming up on 15 years?
Yeah. I've been in it. It's since 2007. Yep. Right. I can't math right, so you tell me if I did the math right.
I think it's coming up on 15 years. I'm not very good. I can't ask him. He can't even read a tape measure.
Yeah.
So
I am not a math Asian at all. Like, right? Asians are good at math. Not this one. No. I need to look at my fingers. I need to look at my toes. I can't. But if you need me to balance something on my head or like be dexterous and like be a party like circus Asian, I can do that. I'm good at that. Just not the math stuff.
That's funny. So do you have any athletic experience before you started Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, like growing up?
No, 100% dance and performing arts. I think the closest thing to anything competitive was when I got into breakdancing right before I started doing Muay Thai. And so like anyone who knew me as a kid and they see what I do now as a living, like they all knew me as this ballerina, right? I was like, I played the piano and I did ballet and I did jazz and I was in like the Filipino like folk dance group. Like I was the artsy kid, right? And like, Kristina, how'd you go from being a ballerina to like this jiu-jitsu stuff that you're doing? And I thought you were such a nice girl. I'm like, I'm still a nice girl? Wait, what? I've always been a nice girl. I just like to choke people sometimes and get paid for it. It's weird. But yeah, like, no, I didn't play any competitive sports. I think I played one season of basketball in the 3rd grade, and that was just because my childhood best friend was doing it. So whatever she did, I wanted to do. I was terrible. If it's a sport that involves a ball getting into a goal and there's no physical contact, chances are I'm not going to be good at it. Like, no, it is almost it's laughable. You will think that I am joking, like, or punking you, like how bad I am. Like you say shoot a ball, it'll like go that way. It's no coordination with that.
That's
with sports ball. But
I could see dance helping out though. I mean, dance has some coordination and movement.
Oh yeah. I think that was definitely the biggest advantage coming into jiu-jitsu, was just the body coordination, having core strength, being able to understand techniques too. So like when I'm watching a technique in class, it made sense because it's like I'm watching choreography. So
right.
My understanding of movement and like body awareness was just a lot higher as a white belt. So it just clicked. It just made sense. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think a large portion of, if someone doesn't have like an athletic background when they first start jiu-jitsu, the first couple months is literally just figuring out how your body works.
Yeah.
You're like, they're like, put your arm here. You're like, that's the complete opposite way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, it's like Twister all the time. My foot, right hand on, red and left on here, and then your foot.
Yeah.
All the time. And I have to be, like, I always remind myself this, like, whenever I have new students, and I'm like, your right hand, and they're like this. I'm like, no, you're the right hand. It's like, no, my right hand. It's like Napoleon Dynamite. Like,
that's me. I'm like, can you just move it in the right spot for me? Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, Kristina, like, just, okay, right? So some people don't, like, some people, like, I have to do this too, like, okay, which side's my left hand? Yeah, the L. I'm like, okay, this is my left hand. Okay, which one?
If you guys aren't watching this, we held the L's up with our hands, and then I drew the L. Like,
this is my left hand. So yeah, but that was definitely an advantage. Like, if you told me to put my foot somewhere, like, it made sense for me to put my foot somewhere,
Yeah.
But yeah, like not having that, it can be kind of difficult,
So knowing that, when you go to like teach someone now, what are some ways that like someone you can get someone to help understand faster? You know what I mean? Because there is that whole like, I don't know what's going on right now.
I really, really like pushing movement drills a lot. Like a lot of my warm-ups that I do, they're always going to be somehow related to whatever it is I'm going to be teaching that day. But I'll always stress, like, this isn't just some movement to get warm or just because it looks silly or because I want to look at you struggle. Teaching students how to do like forward trims for the first time. It's like, yeah, that's for my enjoyment. I find joy in seeing you struggle. It's not because of that. Okay. I promise. But no, like these are like, I like functional movement. So I think the easier it is for people to like understand those functional movements, then the easier it becomes to understand what we're going to be doing. Like with the technique itself, like I use a lot of analogies too. So I'll say, okay, when we're, doing a hip escape across the mat, that's kind of like doing something in 2D, right? And then when you're applying a hip escape in some way, shape, or form with a partner, now that's like 3D, right? And now when you're applying that same movement, but not using the floor, maybe using a different part of the body, or maybe you're angled differently, like maybe you're going to be inverted, or maybe you're on the back, or now you're switching like where you start off, but the concept is still the same. Now that's like bringing it into 4D. So it's always like working in dimensions. And so there's always, I feel like if you teach the why, and that's a lot of the reason why having Caio like as my professor, like it just made sense. He always taught the why. And I feel like I've always just had really good professors. Like even when I moved to Arizona and I was under Gustavo Dantas, same thing. The why was so important. And I think it's not about the whole picture, because sometimes I think that's a little too hard for people to digest at one time. If you can say if we can at least pinpoint to like what our objective is within each step, so we know it's not just a mindless like, oh, I'm grabbing here because they told me so, right? I think that makes it a little bit easier. I think in the beginning it's harder because you have to train yourself to think this way, but in the long run it becomes easier, as opposed to just being spoon-fed, and then later on you're going to have a harder time understanding like more difficult or more advanced techniques, because I don't know, like I guess like we're going to say, like with the fundamentals shouldn't be easy. Fundamentals are like, they're basic, but they're not necessarily easy. Those are the building blocks. And so again, you might put some time and effort, and it might be a little bit more difficult in the beginning just to get those building blocks. But once you understand how they work and how you can use them, it becomes easier in the long run.
So when you mentioned warm-ups and kind of using technique to warm someone up, what do you see as an effective warm up? Do you believe in like the running around the mat, doing push ups, sit ups, jumping jacks, kind of, or do you try to like use a drilling technique like you mentioned,
like triangles or arm bars,
like shooting triangles and stuff like that?
I like the running around and the push-ups and the sprawls and all the stuff for the kids because I want to make them tired and I don't have energy for them. So, so I'll make the kids do all the burpees. I won't necessarily make the adults do it so much. We do the beginning like warmer like run around. I do, even though I'm a guard puller, I like making sure I'm integrating some sort of like stand up. So even when we're doing the run arounds, those are all footwork drills. So I don't want us to run or sprint just to run or sprint. I'm making sure I'm adding in footwork. So like if you're doing like little karaokes or like how you shuffling backwards, skipping backwards, forward and backwards. Again, there's always going to be a purpose to it. Obviously, if someone's got injuries, I always modify. I'm like, okay, do squats or something else instead. But yeah, I don't make my like adult students do like push-ups or burpees or anything like that. Like no one's going to be pushing up out of anywhere, I don't think, right?
Right.
And I don't know about you, well, maybe you guys can. Like, I can't bench press anybody off of me, so I'm not going to be, that's not functional to me, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I do like swinging arm bars. I do like Kimura sit-ups. I do like shooting triangles. All the warm-ups that we do across the mat, they're all going to be like, again, functional movement. Technical stand-ups. I love technical stand-up because it doesn't matter if you're a white belt or a black belt. And at a basic level or at like the highest world class level, you're going to use a technical stand-up in almost everything, right? Whether you're falling, whether you're getting back up, whether you're going to be sweeping somebody, like that is like, I think I stress technical stand-up the most. Like, for example, the past 2 weeks, I've been doing just the stand-up part of our curriculum, my curriculum, and which is, for the most part, for the past 2 weeks, I've only been teaching judo. And then this next week will be coming into wrestling. So that means I'm teaching break falls. Every single class is lots of break falls. Every single day, there's going to be footwork drills. Every single day, there's going to be some form of like understanding grip fighting. I feel like that's going to be a little bit more valuable. And again, it gets people thinking, okay, I'm moving with purpose as opposed to just moving just to moving or moving just to move.
Do you think, since you watch a lot of students, would it be better for newer practitioners, say they're coming in with a less athletic background, to focus on strengthening their cardio or muscular? Well,
I mean, like, the thing is, are you talking about like doing stuff like outside of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. That was a question I had for you. Someone was curious. Should they focus more on weights or cardio? What do you think is more beneficial?
What's more beneficial is doing more jiu-jitsu. There's nothing out there that recreates or simulates jiu-jitsu except for jiu-jitsu. And I think that's what makes it so unique. Sure, you could go running, you could bike, you could lift, you could do CrossFit or some sort of cross training or whatever. Like, those are all going to be supplementary, but ultimately none of that is going to make you better at jiu-jitsu except for actually doing jiu-jitsu, because the cardio that you get from rolling is not the same as, it's not a sprint. It's also not a marathon. It's somewhere right in between. You have to know when you can kind of go with bursts. You have to know when you can pull back. You have to know when you can rest. Even like how you engage your muscles, it's not the same either. It's not all explosive and it's not all just holding on tight the entire time. Right. I think like it's like learning when you can, when you can pull, when you can push, when you can actually relax and let go and breathe. All of that stuff, like you really only get from rolling. And you can make that easier. So if someone is like coming in not super athletic, I would do specific rounds. Like, your objective is you're going to start from close guard and you need to try to find a way to sweep or submit the person, and you have 1 minute to do it. And so you have like, it makes it a bit easier for you like to focus. 1, I have an objective. 2, I know where I'm starting. And 3, now I just got to figure out how to make it work. And you can get really, really tired in that, for example, 1 minute, right? 1 minute on top and 1 minute on bottom. And you do a bunch of that. But what you're doing is over time, you're just making itself easier, right? Because you're going through these like little sprints. And then before you know it, it's like 1 minute, now 2 minutes. And then now you're getting through 5-minute rounds because you were doing everything else before. And now you have an idea of direction and objective. especially because like, you know, you hear it all the time, like, well, what do I do now? You know, I'm here now. What do I do? Now what? Right.
Yeah.
So I like with my beginners, giving them specific scenarios to work from. And again, you can get really, really tired from that, but you can also get a lot of really good conditioning. And I think it makes it easier to transition to like full 5-minute rounds. I like having my students roll right away if they feel comfortable doing it. I know some places don't.
Yeah.
I think if you compare a beginner with someone who's, you know, more versed and has a little bit more experience, again, I think different gyms have different kind of communities and different mindsets, but where I'm at right now, everyone tries to help each other for the most part. So, it's safe to do that. Like, obviously I'm not going to put the 2 beginner white belts with each other and then, you know, like, okay, have at it, right? You know, pull out the popcorn and like, you know, not trying to have that happen. But yeah, I think just starting small bits and then lengthening that time little by little.
So how do you feel about, kind of beginner classes, like onboarding classes for brand new practitioners? Do you feel, because it just made me think of how those typically don't spar, and if they do, it's going to be new white belt versus new white belt, which we all know is like rams locking horns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you feel those are beneficial, or should you just throw them into Gen Pop and then let them kind of learn that way with the more experienced belts?
Throw them in to the general. I mean, like, you get, like, again, like in the beginning, like if I have a brand new person coming in, for sure, I'm going to have someone walk them through like the warm-ups. I'm like, hey, this is going to be your battle buddy today, right? You know, I'll put them in with like a blue belt or a purple belt, if I can. And like, hey, you know, like you're just going to shadow this person and they're going to show you the ropes. And that makes it easier for them because I know it can be super awkward and intimidating walking into those mats for the first time. Sometimes I can have new white belts with each other, but then it's like I have a little bit of anxiety too because it's like they don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, oh man, just something bad's going to happen. So it's like, you know, you kind of want to keep them separated as much as they can. And then only when they're tired enough do you let them meet.
Come together.
They just, you know, they just got tired out by the blue belt, the purple belt, the brown belt, you know, and then now you bring them together and now they're too tired to use anything like strength, and they're just gonna lay on each other and they're just gonna like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, that's good, excellent. My plan is coming together.
That's funny.
So I'll wait for the very last round for them to work with each other, and then that way I can 100% focus on them, and then also like the upper belts also got time to be focused on as well too. So everyone gets a little bit of attention because sometimes that's hard too with the upper belts. Like they don't always want to be helping the lower belts. They want to have some time to be selfish and work on their stuff too. But I feel like at some point, every upper belt has to sacrifice a round or two to help somebody who's lower than them. So
take a rest round,
recovery.
Yeah, no. Some of those runs are like, oh, I'll go with a white belt for a rest round. It was not a rest round.
Oh, preach.
They're like, oh my God.
John's 43 years old. It's no white belts a rest round for him.
Yeah, not at all.
I'm like, why are you so strong? Oh God, I know I'm a black belt, but oh my God, I'm small. And I'm 36. I got a bum knee. Like, I'm not trying to prove anything, but please slow down.
So I normally tell him we bump fist. I'm like, look, I'm old. Just take it easy on me. Relax, breathe.
And then 30 seconds later, he's wrist locking him.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
see? We can be friends.
That's right. So speaking of wrist locks, do you feel that white belts, are there any techniques that white belts shouldn't learn when they first start, or should they be in like a very controlled environment and it's okay?
You definitely should have some control, but they should also learn with caution, like, because the next belt is blue belt, and once blue belt gets along, wrist locks are there. And as white belts, they can learn foot locks. So like, yeah, they need to learn. I would say maybe obviously, like, I think there's a timeline for things. I think your first class shouldn't be footlocks, right? I think a fair timeline would be like anywhere between 3 to 6 months of like consistently training, understanding concepts, because there's so much there. Like even submissions in general. Like I like teaching right away, but like we wanna teach stuff that's going to be relatively low risk, right? And success is going to be like low to like moderate, right? Like so it may not necessarily work right off the bat, but it's enough to get them some confidence, right? And then once they start having confidence with those things and they have like a better idea of like, okay, I want to fight for these positions, then we can start adding in stuff that's going to be a little bit higher risk, like a footlock. Footlock, I won't say it's super high risk, but a lot can go wrong with it. Obviously, if you do it wrong, you can sacrifice position. If you don't understand like how to position yourself or how to apply pressure, you can either hurt yourself or hurt somebody else. So there's definitely always some caution, but I'm always going to mention like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that because this is what you're going to be putting yourself in danger for. Like, hey, you don't have to worry about this now, but in a year or so or whenever you get to the next belt, that's going to be a thing. So it's best to be aware of it now, And I think that's fair to do. I don't think you're doing any favors to anyone by not showing them or not saying like it doesn't exist. Like you should definitely talk about it, but do they necessarily need to be training it like right off the bat, like month one? I don't think so. Like they're still learning how to do shrimps and forward rolls. Like, like stop messing with people's feet, like, you're doing footsies.
So, when it comes to like new practitioners and competing, how do you handle that? Because you're a heavy competitor. If someone were to, month one, they're like, I love this, I want to compete. Like, how do you handle that?
Well, it's student by student basis for me. There's never going to be like, oh, because I teach this white belt this way, I'm going to do that for everybody. It definitely is student by student basis. And that becomes like an honest talk because since that's something that I am passionate about and I absolutely love doing. And I also like, seeing when people get curious. I'm like, yeah, okay. So if you're thinking about competing, you're month in, like, if there's someone who's kind of struggling a little bit, I'd say, hey, like, let's try to get things put together a bit more. Let's make sure that we understand, like understanding sweeps and understanding positions a little bit more. You're kind of struggling here a little bit, or maybe you're having a hard time asserting. So, but that's definitely a goal that we can work towards, right? So I'm never going to say like, no, you can't compete, but I will definitely say like, hey, we might need to take a little bit of time to like work so we have a little bit more in our arsenal, right? And I always encourage too, is like, I want this to be like a good journey. Like there's no rush to this. So I don't want anybody rushing into a tournament with certain expectations and then they quit, right? Because that's also bad for business, right? So there's the part of me that like has to be like, yeah, I want you to compete, but there's also the part of me that's like, but we also have to retain and maintain students, right? And so we want to make sure that we're putting them on a good path for growth, so they have, again, realistic expectations of themselves. Now, if there's someone that already has like a competitive background, sometimes I'll have like, brand new students who have a little bit of like wrestling background or something like maybe they played sports before, some gymnastics or whatever, and like they're pretty athletic, right? I'm like, okay, that's something that we could probably do. Like, but I would still also see like, but we probably need to get a little bit more in your arsenal. We could probably have to lay down a little bit more. Like you move really well, you have like really good potential. So let's set a date, right? Let's look for a tournament and then let's focus on that. And then depending on how your training goes from now leading up to that, we'll see if we're going to be in the right place to compete. So I am definitely really, really supportive. And depending on the student, they could compete with only a month experience, or maybe we're waiting for more like 3 to 6 months, which I think is what most people do. I won't say most, but a lot of people do.
So you talk a lot about like mental training for competition and jiu-jitsu. Is that something that you before your students start competing, is that something that you try to help them with also?
100%. Yeah. I will never neglect adding in the mental side of it. Because like the thing is, it's not even the competition part where like the mental training comes in. Of course you need to prep for the actual competition day, but it's actually like the mental prep, like coming in every single day to train, especially when you come into days where like, man, you're tired, you're sore, everyone's kicking your butt, right? Everyone's submitting you, everyone's sweeping you. Like those are the days that are going to be the hardest. And those are going to be the days that are going to really test you, like, hey, am I even doing the right thing? What makes me think I can even compete? And so it's really important that we talk about those things earlier, not later, right? We don't want to get to the tournament and you're like, oh, I'm freaking out, like, I don't know what to do. And, like, oh, why did I do this? Why did I do that? I'm like, man, we kind of want to start that beforehand. So, like, if you have doubts, let me know so I can kind of work that through. But, yeah, because if you're thinking that just going in to train and just trying to train harder than everybody else is going to be good enough, it's not. Like, yeah, that is a very big aspect of it. You do need to be able to assert. You do need to put in the effort. You need to try to go as many rounds as you can, but you also have to have some grace and some kindness, like, especially when the days come where you're just getting your ass kicked. Like, I've definitely had that where I've lost every single round of comp training and then like cry and then have to do it again later. And then going into competition, like having to remember those days where I felt like absolute crap. Like, some of my best performances were when I had, like, I feel like I did shit for like the training the entire time. I'd never at one point felt confident during the training part to it. But that builds a certain amount of mental fortitude, you know? So, super important. And yeah, right off the bat, I'm always talking about that every single day. I'm competitor or not, I'm talking about like the mental aspect of it, because again, this is not an easy sport. It's not an easy thing to stay in. And a lot of that is just because of like the mental stuff.
Have you had any big setbacks in your training, and did you have any tools to overcome them, like injury-wise or anything like that?
We were actually at like pretty much my 5-year anniversary of like re-tearing like ACL, PCL, MCL. I competed at Fight to Win against Patty Fontes, and it was like I had already tore my PCL like the year prior, and then I had like this recovery, and it was I tore it right after Worlds, and then I already had my ticket for the Asian Championships, and I'm like, well, no, we're gonna go to this tournament. So I was like, I couldn't even train, so all I did was physical therapy and like hard dieting to get ready for Japan. And like, it's like, well, we're just gonna have to do, you know, like it wasn't the prettiest win, but a win is a win, right? And then so I rehabbed it, and I was, you know, but like my knee, it's all ugh. And then like a year and a half later, then I tore it in that tournament, and then I had to have surgery. So, and that was really, really tough. Like, I think one of the last things I remember before, like, you know, they give you the anesthesia and like before, like, you know, going under, the last thing I remember was crying. Like, I'm like, oh God, it's happening. You know, like, I'm all trying to be positive, like, everything is fine. You know, like, okay, so like, we want you to count backwards from 10. And like, I said 10, and I felt like the little tear leave my eye. I'm like, oh God. Oh, right. And then, but lucky, like when I came to, they're like, all right, well, the surgery was only 2 hours instead of 4 hours. I'm like, is everything okay? They're like, yeah, well, everything was holding. The damage wasn't as bad as everything presented before. So we just cleaned it up. I'm like, oh wow, like that was I dodged a bullet there. But yeah, that was a really, really dark place. Like, you imagine, like, I couldn't even, like, I struggled showering myself, you know, like I'm sitting, you know, I couldn't stand in the shower. I had to like sit on like this stool, and then I had to like use like the tub water and like a bucket to like just to bathe myself. I had to put my leg up. I remember there's one time where I think like I dropped the soap, and then like I fell off my stool, and I'm just like, and like my leg is up, I'm there, you know, soap is everywhere. I'm just like, so right, and just feeling sorry for myself, and like that really sucked, right? Like I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I mean, like, but like, you know, I feel like that happens a lot in our sport. And like, I think that's a time where you really, really get tested. And especially, I was already a black belt at that time. Like, luckily, I think I dodged a lot of like really bad major injuries at the lower belts. But I mean, I got lower back problems, I got neck problems, you know, shoulder, you know, everything. But it wasn't until I was a black belt that I had like surgery. And like, that was like the big scare. Like, oh no, I'm not going to ever reach my potential, or I'm never going to be able to accomplish the things I want to accomplish because of this injury now. It's going to set me so far back. But obviously I'm thriving. I did fine, you know, like, but at the time it was just a really, really, really dark place. And it felt like I didn't have too much hope. Like, even though I knew like all I need to do is just keep going, but you know, it's really, really easy to have your doubts during that time.
What resources do you use to help with like mental strength, especially in times like that?
Well, luckily I had like a lot of like good prep. Like when I was with Gustavo Dantas, he was like a really, really big like mental coaching, mental prep. Like that's like his whole platform. And so I was kind of like his guinea pig. And I was very, very resistant to it at first too. I was one of those, like, I just need to train harder. I need to do private lessons. I just need to shut up and train and drill. And I don't need to do this mental training stuff because that's only for people who are weak and scared and they don't have confidence. And like, that was just me projecting all of like my fear and insecurity. I'm not afraid. You're afraid. Right. So, a lot of it is just like going back to like touching back to like, not even as an athlete, but like making sure I always touch back to who I am as a person. Like my athletic self does not define me as an actual person, right? Just because I win or I lose is not going to make me a better person or like a worse person. I'm not all of a sudden like people aren't going to stop loving me if I stop winning, or I'm not going to be less valuable for whatever reason. And it was like having to be okay with like, okay, these things are going to be tough for a while. And then having to kind of talk yourself through that, like, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? And then what's the best that could happen? Right. Because it's really, really easy to think about all the bad things, like what the worst things that could happen first, and without considering that here's the good things that could happen. Right. And then having a good support system, I think, would be the hugest one, because it's like, it's really easy to isolate yourself, and it's really easy for us to make ourselves believe like we're the only ones going through it and we're the only ones that are feeling what we're feeling. And if you can like have a support system, like especially with training partners who've gone through similar things, talking to your professors or talking to your coaches or talking to those who are like have more experience than you, that's also a really good like source of help that's available to you. Obviously depending on the relationship that you have with everybody, but like most people will have that, some family member, some friends. I think we live too much in our head and we don't spend enough time actually verbalizing what it is that we're feeling. And so therefore it's a lot easier for things to get kind of out of hand and grow bigger and more powerful, because like we give them power. Right. But it's surprising by how much the moment you actually like speak it or talk about it, you take the power away from it. Right. And it becomes less, and you're like, oh, it's not so scary. So it's kind of like, I don't know, shining like a flashlight into the shadows and stuff like that. So I really, really, really did have to, one, rely on my own training, but then also, as much as like I hate to do it, but I'm afraid to do it, rely on the people around me for support, because that is what they are there for. Like, how am I going to say that you can come to me for help if I don't go to others for help too, right? Yeah. So I feel like it's the scariest thing for a lot of people to do, because you have to admit that you're scared or that you're vulnerable. But it's going to be the thing that also like helps you the most, because again, like going through something alone is probably one of the worst things to have happen. So understanding that you're not is already going to put you ahead.
Today's episode of Elbows Tight Podcast is brought to you by the Amino Co. John, go ahead and tell the listeners at home a little bit about Amino Co.
So I'm using Heal. It's to help with recovery. It's 100% science-backed. What I like about it is it triggers lean muscle growth and repair 4 times more efficiently than any other protein source. It reduces muscle atrophy and improves physical function after surgery. It helps maintain a healthy inflammatory response by acting mTOR. I highly recommend everyone go to Amino Co. Look it up online. Check out the science-backed details. It's all there. So far, I really like it. It tastes great. It mixes easy. And I'm looking forward to using it for a couple months.
If you guys want to check out Heal and check out the science, go to aminoco.com/elbowstight. Once again, that is aminoco.com/elbowstight, and use code elbowstight at checkout for 30% off. Every new purchase does get a free gift as well. Thank you, Amino Co, for sponsoring this episode. So how do you deal with like imposter syndrome? You recently posted like Instagram thing talking about imposter syndrome. How do you deal with that?
Just fake it till I make it. That's all.
Preach.
Right, I'm right there with you.
I do a little dance. If I make it look, I'll just dazzle them with my bullshit, and no one will be the wiser. No. I'll do something fancy, and I'll say a bunch of big words. Yeah. it's a day by day process, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's always ups and downs. And actually, something that I've been doing recently to kind of help is like while I'm in it, because like again, while I'm in it, I'll just shut up and I go and I teach, right? And I'm like, okay, that felt pretty good. But I've been recording myself teaching like the past couple weeks, and I've been kind of like reviewing, and I'm like, oh, okay. So now instead of just being like, oh, Kristina, you're such shit, like you're just totally lying to them and you don't know what you're talking about. And then I look back at it, and then now it's like, I mean, I know I'm watching myself, but now I actually have something that I can correct.
Yeah.
And I can also compliment myself too, like, oh, wow, that was really good detail that I did there. Oh, that was really good movement. I could probably improve that a little bit better. And that I feel like is a little bit more productive, right? Because again, same thing. If we're just in our heads and we're just like, oh, it's only a matter of time before people find you out, or, you know, you're a total fake, or, you know, you did that one part wrong, right? Like, I think everything is going to be okay for as long as we can at least take accountability, right? I know I'm not perfect, but I've gotten better at admitting if I don't know something, and that also helps me too. So it's like, okay, I don't have to act like I know everything just because I'm a black belt, just because I have all these titles and I have all this experience. Like, I don't have all the answers. So I had to teach myself to get more comfortable admitting like, hey, let me get back to you on that, because that's a situation or a scenario that I'm not too familiar with. Oh, that guard or that specific position, I don't do too much work with it, but let me get back to you, because I can study up on that. And that makes me better. And I feel like that makes it a little bit more honest. So I think the more that we feel like we have to be like this unstoppable superhero figure for people, it's like it's time we're setting ourselves up for failure if we do that, because it's like we're trying to be someone that we're not. But if we actually just admit that, like, hey, yeah, there's a lot of things I'm good at, but there's also a lot of things I'm not. And I think when we're a little bit more honest with ourselves, then I feel like that helps combat that a little bit. But it is a process. I think starting off with the things that you're good at is always a good place to start. Like when I did my mental training program for the confident athlete, it was literally called a confidence resume. So factual things about you that you could say that are like, yeah, this shows that I am qualified, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I won this tournament, or people struggle passing my guard, right? Like these are things that can be supported by evidence, right? And I think that makes it easier for our minds to kind of like hold on to those things and then make it easier to build from there. So, but yeah, I just bullshit them, right? I just make it look fancy enough.
There you go.
Get a little oohs and some ahs, and then I can feel good about myself. I'm like, ha, I got him again, you know?
Right.
And then every single day I just want to do that. I'm like, let's see what I can get him with this time, right?
That's funny. Have you ever had any issues like coaching men in jiu-jitsu? Has there ever been like any feedback, kind of like, I don't want to say animosity, but have you ever had any issues with that?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's definitely a lot better now, but I've had it where like visitors would come in and like not even shake my hand. Like
what?
they shake like the other guys like that were black belts around me, or like it was so weird. I was like, why are you not shaking my hand? Why are you? And like I outranked somebody. It's like, why are you shaking the lower rank before me? Like, or like I'd go and help a person, like the same person, and like I'd try to like help him with the technique, and he'd like ignore me. I'm like, that's weird.
You're like, this is pretty black, you know?
Yeah, right? I'm like, did
I put the wrong belt on today? What is going on?
I mean, I know like my belt's getting worn, and it's getting kind of like, you don't know what belt that is. I have it all the time. I had people like, I posted a flyer recently for a seminar that's going to happen in February. And I had like 4 or 5 DMs were just like, what belt is that? I'm like, it's a black belt. It's just really worn. Or like kids will be like, is that a zebra belt? Like, is that a gray belt? Why are you a gray belt? I didn't know they had gray belts for adults. Like, yeah,
that's so funny.
It's just really worn. But yeah, like sometimes I'll have like guys who they want to like F around and find out, right? Like they go harder than they should, right? Like again, just because I'm a black belt does not give you permission to, go balls to the wall and try to hurt me. Right. Like obviously I won't say luckily I haven't gotten hurt, but like, it's scary, like walking in, especially to like open mats or you're a guest somewhere and they don't necessarily know who you are. And I kind of like whatever energy is given to me, I kind of try to go with it too. But if you're going like kind of like too far off the rails right off the bat, it's like, okay, we're not doing that. We're going to, I'm going to try to slow you down. But I feel like after those initial interactions, it either goes one of two ways. Either they like don't ever train me ever again, or they sit and they listen. And I think like 80% of the time, 85% of the time, like more often than not, they sit and they listen. Very rarely do they like, well, screw this, I'm gonna go somewhere else. Which I have had happen. I had when I first started teaching here, there was a blue belt that was at the academy, and it was, I don't know, like it was just, I guess, trying to prove something, or like I think they came from a different school, and so everything had to be like how their old professor did, and the things that I was teaching and the things I was saying was just like, well, that's just all wrong. It's too this, it's too that, it's too IBJJF, or it's too sport or whatever. It's not realistic. And they left. And I actually didn't find out about that until recently. And they had been gone for like, a year or two now. I actually know where they train now. And I was like, oh, that's weird. It seemed like I'll have guys ask me, what about this? What about that? What about this? It's almost kind of like borderline pushing, like
condescending.
Yeah. And it's in front of everybody in class. Right. And it's like, man, like this doesn't happen to guys, or sometimes it does. You have like the white belts. There's always the what if guy. There's always a what if guy in class.
Why don't you just stand up?
Yeah. just pick him up and just pull your arm out. Right. Yeah. Just get out of there. Right. Just get out of there. But I think now it's been a lot better. And again, this community here is still small. It's still growing, so it's not as saturated. And again, like female black belt is very uncommon here. So in California, it was less likely to happen. But here, I'm not saying I'm finding it a lot, but like I think it's just a different kind of style of jiu-jitsu out here, right? Like California is super competitive. Everybody knows about competitions. Everybody kind of like understands sport jiu-jitsu and like gi, no gi, like everyone kind of just trains that way. And it's still growing out here, but like there are really, really good people out here. Like they just have like good community, want to train, want to get better, but you still have those who are, I don't know if it's like a Southern thing, but sometimes there is that kind of like mentality where like, I'm not sure if I want to listen to like the 120-pound Asian girl, but that has not been the overall experience. I think it's a very small, limited experience, which is good, but it does happen.
Yeah.
I generally ask if I'm rolling with a black belt, how hard they want that roll to go before I start. I thought that was pretty much the norm. Do you get that often, or is that?
I don't usually have people ask me that, although, like, especially NoGi, I don't know what people's belts are.
Right.
So it's a little harder. And if I do know what your belt is, like if you like are brown and black, I will always ask like, do you want ADCC rules or just regular rules? And they're like, oh, regular, because I got knee injuries too. So it's like, I'm not trying to have someone rip on my leg without defining what training that we're going to be doing. In the gi, I don't have, not so much. I don't think that happens so much, but NoGi for sure. I think there has to be like, hey, so what rules do you want to go with? Like, are you good with leg attacks? I'll ask that sometimes too. Like, are you good with leg attacks? And especially like for the most part, if I know you, I'll let you attack whatever it is that you want. If I don't know you, I will not appreciate you just all of a sudden going for heel hooks if I have no idea who you are, what your belt rank is. I feel like doesn't matter if I am a black belt or not. If you know what rank I am, but I don't know what rank you are, I feel like that's really disrespectful to just, especially like my default is to, I guess, if I don't know what rank you are, I'm going to treat you somewhere kind of like a blue belt, right? Because you could be a white belt or you could be a purple belt, but I go with the intention of like, I'm going to see how you roll first. The moment you start like ripping on things, it's like, okay, well, now Like, I was like, especially, I don't know you. Like, now I'm going to have to enforce, and I don't like doing that.
Right.
And again, that doesn't happen very often. That is a very, very rare occasion, but it has happened. So I think defining rules is super important, especially with no-gi rounds, because I feel like people are a little bit more considerate in the gi. You can slow things down. But yeah, defining rules before no-gi rounds for sure, because yeah, you never know who you're going to be rolling with. Or if people's got injuries, I always ask that too. Like, hey, is there anything injured that I need to be worried about,
and then only attack that.
Yeah. Oh, your knee is messed up? Okay, just let me all the cats out, all the toe holds. That's it. I'm gonna do all the things. Thank you.
So how should practitioners view rolling with a black belt or a higher belt? Because I always, as a blue belt, right? We've been doing this coming up on 6 years now, 5 years coming, and rolling with a black belt, kind of, there's like this psychological thing with me where I don't know how hard or I should go with them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, if I catch something, I don't know, like, should I try to finish this thing, or like, you know what I mean? There's like this whole mental battle going on mid-roll of like, I don't know how hard I should go. I don't want to be that spazzy blue belt or that person that they don't want to roll with, because it brings a lot of value rolling with higher belts to me.
Yeah.
So how should practitioners look and go in roles with higher belts?
Well, I mean, it really just depends on the relationship that you have with them, right? Like, there are certain people who I know, like, it doesn't matter what I do. Like, anytime I'm going to roll with my professor, like, doesn't matter. I'm a white belt. I know
so
nothing. Good. No, yeah. Anytime, I think like one of the last times I rolled with Caio, he had like a broken hand or something. He tucked his hand in his belt, and then he swept me without his hands and submitted me just only using his legs. And I'm like, what the camp shit, right? And then you're gonna have also. What just happened?
Oh,
that's just your. I hope that doesn't. There you go. Hello.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. But there are also, like, I know that there are a lot of black belts too who will let lower belts play a little bit. So like, me personally, I'll go with the flow. All I ask is don't crank on anything, and don't move so sporadically to the point where like I might possibly eat a knee or eat an elbow or get headbutted. Like that is all I ask. Like there's no reason for you to be like, shooting a knee into my chest for like a knee slice if all I'm doing is sitting here, right? But I also do think that there should be a certain amount of like, you should assert a little bit. Like, don't wait for the upper belts to do something. Because like, if you're waiting for them to see what they're going to do, they've already plotted your death. Mm-hmm. Right. And again, like, and sometimes they are creating openings. They want to see what you're going to do. I like to also like, if I catch someone with something that they shouldn't do, like, hey, don't put your hand there because it will end up leading into an armbar, right? I'll say it once and that will be it. I will not say it again. So if you do it again, I'm going to catch you. Like, this is the reason why you don't put your arm you don't put your arm there. Like, okay. Right. I will definitely mention to someone like, hey, like, if they are going a little strong or if they're using too much strength, like, hey, you're putting it in the wrong place, put it here instead. So I think if you're going with someone who's okay with being constructive, that's cool. But there's so many egos to work with, and it's really hard to navigate. I say always err in with like whatever a person's giving you, kind of give back if you're able to. If not, like, if they are going way too much, then say something, right? Just say something like, hey, can we pull back a little bit? Because like, like, name whatever reason. And you could even just be as blunt as being like, I'm afraid you're going to hurt me. Please slow down.
Yeah.
Like, my bad, right? Because some people don't know. Like, some people don't realize how they're going, especially a white belt. So I'd say go in respectfully. Don't go in feeling like you need to prove something. And then go in knowing that no matter what happens, like, you're not better or worse of a person. You're just working towards a goal. Because like, you do have people there who think like they're going to be collecting like medals by trying to tap upper belts. And it's like, don't do that. Don't be that guy. Because someone will enforce on that too. Like, no one is here to be a stepping stone for you. We're all kind of growing together. So don't be that guy. Be respectful. and don't hurt anybody. Don't hurt anybody. Don't be that guy either, because you will be enforced on so fast. Don't hurt anybody. Don't be that guy, right? And then and yeah, respect. Don't hurt anybody, and also just don't be afraid to, again, try. Don't be afraid to fail, because I mean, anytime that you're going with an upper belt, you really have nothing to lose. So just try. Just try.
That was reminding me, I was going to tell that funny story with Professor Sean. When I first rolled with our new black belt, I went like, you said, don't go too slow, because I was waiting for him to make the first move, and he just destroyed me the rest of the match. And I was like, okay, next time I roll with him, I'm going to go harder. And I didn't roll, and I left. I went back down to San Diego, so I was gone for a couple months, and then I came back to Washington. And we rolled, and I threw a wrist lock on him about, I don't know, a minute into it. And he was like, oh, okay, prison rules. Then he waxed me the entire rest of it. I was like, oh, man, never doing that again. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun.
No, yeah. I was like, but did you have fun? Did you die?
Yeah.
You did not. You're telling the story, obviously.
You did not die. Right.
Pretty great.
No, I totally love that. One of my friends, Mikey, he's a brown belt, and he always says it's like, yeah, the first time I rolled with you, I was like, okay, she's small, I'll be nice, and then it's like, and then I regretted every moment of that afterwards. It's like, you took my back, and you're like this evil backpack, and I couldn't, couldn't do anything.
Backpack trying to murder him.
And he's like, and was like, you know what? Nope, screw that. Nope, we're gonna go regular with you now. And I'm like, good. And then now we go regular. So he's not afraid to smash me, but I'm also like, I was like, if you don't smash me, I will attack you. I will attack. So don't be disrespectful, but like, please do, like, keep me in check too, right?
Yeah.
Like I need to be kept in check as well. I can't let my ego go running around like, I'm beating up on all the students. Ha, right. Another one.
Right.
So keep me in check. But yeah, he's just like, what the hell? Why is she so strong? Why is she so fast? Why can't I get rid of her?
That's so funny. So you mentioned Caio Terra. You got your black belt from him?
Yes, I did.
So do you have any other role models that you look up to, specifically females in the jiu-jitsu community that you really look up to?
Yeah, I really like Anechi Stack. Like, I absolutely love her. She's just a diamond of a person, just really good energy, and she's done so much for just like women's jiu-jitsu. Like Leticia Ribeiro for sure. Like I think these, like, both of them have just been really, really good examples of like strong women in good leadership roles too. Like, they've had like strong competition careers, and like they've won all the titles, they've done all the things, but like just how much they've contributed to like the women's community and like help building to what it is now. Like Hillary Williams, when I was like a blue belt, I just remember like watching her as a brown belt fighting against black belts who were like bigger than her, or like fighting guys, and then even just like following her thing of like learning how to speak Portuguese through like the app like Orkut, whatever. And then like, and I was like, man, she's so cool, right? Like, and she's just beating up all these guys, and like, they just seem so like, yeah, like, I don't say superhuman, like, but also attainable. Like, you know what I mean? Like, very grounded, very, very real people that like, and you can see that it's not just a show, like they genuinely care and they genuinely love the sport. And, like, and it's funny too, like, even like Jazari Matuda, like, I was watching her compete as a brown belt against black belts when I was a blue belt. And I would just remember just being so impressed by like her jiu-jitsu. And then like, fast forward, and now I'm a black belt, she's a black belt, and now like she's my rival, and I'm fighting her. I'm like, dude, that's crazy, right? Like, I feel like only in jiu-jitsu could that happen. And then like, in like just the women over the years that I've gotten to be friends with, and like they're like my equals, like Erin Hurley, she's one of my best friends. She's a black belt as well, and she does amazing things with like the mental health awareness and within the community, especially within the jiu-jitsu community. And yeah, like there's just so many women I feel like that have just paved the way. And especially from when I was a white belt and there was like no one, and then now it's like there's just so many amazing women out there. Like, they're just, again, I think it's a great time right now for women jiu-jitsu, and it's just getting better. Like obviously there's still a long ways to go, but we're getting more, and I love to see it, and I want to be a part of that as much as I can.
What do you think needs to be the biggest catalyst to get more women or the women's side of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu bigger?
I mean, it's been talked about quite a bit, but I mean, like, it comes down to, like, I guess, equal opportunity. Like I see now, like, there's more women's programs. It's great. More women's only seminars and camps, and like just having more opportunities for women to come together, because I know that when I was a white belt, it was really, really competitive. Like the only other time I ever got to see other women in the sport was when I had to fight them, right? And so that kind of builds like this, like, again, rivalry mindset, like, and I've just never been that way. I just want to make friends. I'm scared of people, but I still want to make friends, right? And I found that, like, through that community, just having that available and being able to get past that initial hump of, I have to treat you as my competition as opposed to my teammate or someone who's going to be someone who's going to help me get better. Because I feel like a lot of women are raised with the mindset that I have to look at other women as my competition. Like they're, and that's not just in jiu-jitsu, but that's like everything in life, right? A lot of us were raised that way. And so therefore it's like that cattiness. And I feel like that does, right. And now that there's more opportunities for women to train together, I feel like that has gotten better, but it's still difficult in the pockets of like communities where it's still very, very small, and it still is very much competitive, and it will only get better for as long as there's opportunity for us to actually train with each other in a non-competitive atmosphere. And then with competition, having more opportunities for us to also compete within a fair playing ground, right? Like having more weight divisions or, belt divisions. Again, sometimes that means that those divisions will be smaller. I understand sometimes they'll end up having to be put together just to make things work. But for as long as it's made available, then women know that there's something for them to go to. Otherwise, it's just going to be like, well, there's no place for me to sit, It's kind of like, you can sit with us if you want to, like if, but that's not the same as like, here is your place at the table. Please come eat, come here. Right. So, but it's getting better. Like, I think like pro events like ADCC, right? Like they need to have more weight divisions for sure. At this point in time. Yeah. And an absolute. At this point in time. They don't have an
absolute. I thought that was crazy.
Yeah. Because it's like up to, what was it? How many? Up to 60 kilos, like up to 60 kilos, and then 60 kilos plus, right? That is essentially absolute. So like, if you're at the bottom of that, that's screwed. So it's like, we're at the point now where we can have more than 2 weight divisions. You can add another 2, and you can also add an absolute, because the talent pool is huge now. There is absolutely zero excuse for any pro event to not have high level women's matches. There's no excuse for if there can be a men's Grand Prix, there 100% for sure can be a women's Grand Prix, and you're seeing it. We're seeing these advancements. So again, like the more exposure and the more opportunity that we have, and the more that is being shown that like, hey, this is available to you, I think that will definitely entice more women to come in, because we see that there's a place for us. It's not just an afterthought. It's an actual, like, a conscientious effort to make a place for us to grow. And we're getting there, but we still got some time. We still got a ways.
You mentioned like your personality is like you're not like a competitive person, like not like in the sense of like cattiness and stuff like that. Or when it comes time to compete, how do you flip the switch to be like, fun, Kristina, I'm trying to have a good time, to now I need to choke you? Like how do you flip that switch?
Yeah, well, like I've gotten pretty good at compartmentalizing, like, I don't say all my different personalities, but like, this is Coach Kristina, this is friend Kristina, this is Black Belt Kristina, this is student Kristina, right? And there's always a time and place when I am in competition, that is the time that it's like I am absolutely allowed to be selfish. I am absolutely allowed to put myself first. There is no one before me, just me. It is my responsibility to make sure that I do what needs to be done. And so that is my mindset when I'm competing. I don't want to hurt anybody, but like there is an understanding of the investment of time and the effort. And again, like the level of there's a certain level of selfishness you need to have to be a competitor. It's really hard to be a full-time like instructor and then also be a competitor, because you have to split your time between helping your students and then helping yourself, and you have to make the time to help yourself. Oh my goodness, can you hear? I'm so sorry. Can you hear?
Oh, no,
they started doing like a yard work out there.
Nope.
Don't use that.
You're all good.
So sorry. I'm like, oh no, it's ruined.
No, you're good.
Okay. So yeah, like the switch happens the moment that like I see the mat. Like I'm in the bullpen, like everything in there, I'm getting loose. But I see once I'm in that bullpen, it's like my focus is just right on there, and it's like I don't see anything else. I'm not cold, but like there's a level of like I get right back in, and I have my own tools for that. Like if I need to shake my head, if I need to snap my fingers, if I need to, wring out my hands, anytime that my thoughts start straying off to anything that's outside of the competition that's not going to help me, I make sure I do like a quick reset so I'm focused right back in. And then after I'm done, then I go right back to just being me again. So it's pretty easy. And I think a lot that comes from too is like having the performing arts background, coming from that background of like, okay, you're backstage and you're ready to get onto stage. And in that moment, like all you can think about is where you're going to be on that stage with the spotlight and then performing for everybody. And there is no time to think about anything else or like, am I going to be someone's friends? Like, no, I have to put on this performance. And so, when I'm competing, it's very much like that same mindset, because it's a very similar scenario. Like there's lights, there's all these people around, there's a lot of yelling for me, against me, around me. And then I just kind of like soak it all in. I'm like, okay, I love this, because I love competing, and I am a competitive person, but I'm not going to be competitive with my friends, right? Like right. I don't need to try to prove anything with like outside of where like I feel like it's appropriate. Like, yeah, I'm like, I don't need that stress. So, and again, like, and I like to be friends with who I compete with too. There's no reason for me not to be, unless like we got like a personal thing, but that has not been my experience. I don't like to pick fights with people. For someone who likes fighting, I don't like fighting. Just want to hug people.
So one of our previous guests, Matthew Gillette, he's a black belt down in Arizona, and he's a huge competitor within the IBJJF, right? IBJJF. Yeah. I always say IBBJF, and I'm like, that's completely wrong. Like,
isn't that like bodybuilding?
Yeah,
IBB.
It's similar. But he mentioned cross training, like going to other schools, and you kind of mentioned it earlier. But his point of view, and it was kind of interesting to hear, and I would love to get your take on it. It's a good idea, but you have to be careful, especially if you're a heavy competitor, because sometimes you're going to be dropping in at gyms with people that you are going to be competing against. How should people handle cross training? And do you promote it? Like, are you okay with it?
Love cross training. I love it. And if anything, like, here's the thing: with the internet being the way that the internet is, nothing's a secret. No. Everything's available, right? And I'm not. It's really hard to just hide, what it is that you do. Now, yeah, I'll go to an open mat, and there might quite possibly be someone I'm going to compete against there, and they're going to see what I'm doing. I don't care, right? Because like, just because you can see what I'm doing doesn't necessarily mean you're going to know what that feels like, and you're going to know what to do with it. And if you do figure out how to do something with it, that means I need to make myself better for that too. So I am a big advocate for cross training. More people that you can train with, the better. That's actually the only way that our community grows too. I know, like, we are no longer in the days where it's like, oh, you went to someone else's, you're a crayon, like that. Yeah. I like, we are far beyond those days now. especially again, like if you are an area like here where everybody's either kind of spread out or there's not too much, like the jiu-jitsu is never going to grow because it's always just going to be everyone trying to prove how good they are against each other, as opposed to just growing, right? You're not going to support seminars at other people's academy, even though they're bringing high level people. Like that only hurts you, and that only hurts your students, and that's going to hurt the community. Like again, like you should take advantage of opportunities to learn from other people. Obviously, like your gym is your gym. Your flag is your flag. That should never change. You should have your professor, right? And the person that is going to be the source of your information, and that's a person that you turn to. But you should be free to train at other places too and drop in. You want to train some friends at a different academy, you're on vacation and you want to get some rounds in. You want to even just be in the social aspect of jiu-jitsu, which is so healthy and helpful for a lot of people. Again, mental health wise, like it's a reason why so many people gravitate to jiu-jitsu for their mental health issues, is because of the sense of community, right? Like, it will only make you better. And you may or may not, like, especially here, I feel like there's a lot of women who they fight each other at every tournament, they're going to fight each other, but they also want to train with each other too. You know, like sometimes your best rival is your best competition, and that's going to be the person that's going to make you better, right? It's like Ken and Ryu, right? Like rivals, but like they also like made each other better, like because when one gets better, then you get better too, and it's always going to be this, right? And I don't know. I just like that idea of like the challenge, right? Like, okay, so you figure that part out. Now I got to figure out something else so that to give you trouble, you know. And then I figure out something that you did. Okay, now you're gonna create something else that's gonna give me trouble, and that makes it exciting, right? Like, something new, right? You gotta keep things spicy.
So, if people don't want to compete, like I've never competed, John's competed once. Do you feel cross training is a valid substitute for that, or is nothing replace competing?
Yeah, no, I would say competition is not for everybody. There's dieting and there's training and there's investment. And then there's the you have to put yourself out there, like, and again, like that can be really anxiety inducing. It's not for everyone. I totally get if someone says that they don't want to compete. I'm not gonna be like, no, you need to compete, right? Like, well, just because I like it, you don't have to like the same things I do, right? But yeah, cross training is definitely a good opportunity to kind of see where you're at against different people, right? Because the people that you train with every single day, your teammates, they know like everything that you're going to do. Like they learn your game, and they learn how to defend you, and the same thing that you learn theirs. So if you really want to kind of keep things real and you want to see where you're at, cross training is one of the best things. Go to open mats. Again, if you have an opportunity to go somewhere else, like if you're traveling or you have friends that train it somewhere else and they invite you over, take advantage of those. Because again, that's all just knowledge coming in, and you can kind of see, again, like see where you're at. And also just like, I feel like it gives you a deeper appreciation of the sport because there's so many different styles out there. And sometimes you don't realize what you have until you see what somebody else has too. Right. And so I think it's a really good way to like really, really get into the sport, because that's, again, one of the best parts of jiu-jitsu is the rolling, right? Everybody loves rolling. And so like, and sometimes you want to make that better, roll with different people instead of the same people all the time. What's
one good piece of advice you have for a newer practitioner?
Don't forget to breathe. Like
Breach. I start getting headaches. I'm like, am I breathing? Am I just holding my breath?
Like,
yeah.
Like, I need for you to breathe. Take a deep breath. Right? Breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Like I think, like, especially going in, and I know it kind of sounds cliche, like to have fun, but like always remember why you started. Like why are you here? Like are you here to make yourself happy? Are you here to make somebody else happy? Are you here is there a goal that you have in mind? So every time that you feel like, I don't know what I'm doing, just think about why you started and always touch back to that, because I feel like, and sometimes that changes too. Like, I came in and I thought I just wanted, to be a tough guy, and then you come in and are like, actually, I think I just wanted to be pushed,
Yeah.
And so that changes too. But I think, breathe, have fun, remember why you started, and just take each day at a time. It's not a race. There's no medal for getting something done faster, right? Yeah, we get stripes. Yeah, we get belts, but like you're on your own little path, right? You're on your own trajectory, and everybody is, right? Like if I like using the analogy, if like we're all in a garden, right? But like your sunflower seed, your tomato seed, I'm like a watermelon seed or whatever, like we all have different growing conditions. Now we're all being put into the same soil, but some people need more sunlight, some people need less, some people need more water, some people need less, right? And to compare yourself to the person next to you, you're like, well, how come they're sprouting and how come they're already blossoming and I'm still just a seed in the dirt? Or like, well, they're different from you, right?
Yeah.
And then just because they're growing now doesn't mean that you're not going to grow ever. Like again, like everyone has different requirements. So give yourself a little bit of kindness and some grace when it comes to that too. And remember, it's the hardest thing to do, to not compare yourself to other people. But don't compare yourself to other people, because it's not going to make you any better, and it's only just going to make you feel like crap, right? If you feel like everybody else is doing better than you, everyone's just kind of struggling differently, and we all just kind of present differently too. So
right.
Have fun, breathe, don't compare, and be a beautiful, beautiful seed in the sand or in the dirt.
She's saying that, and I'm picturing myself. What am I? I'm the small cactus. The little small prickly cactus.
Don't touch me. But like funny. You have like a flower on your head. One of my friends, she's a black belt, Rachel Casillas, and she has like, I'm a delicate flower, but she's like a cactus flower.
That's funny. Well, hey, Kristina, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was a phenomenal conversation. I'm super excited for people to listen to this at home. And if you made it this far, let us know what your favorite part was. If you, or where can people find you if they want to follow you?
At KB Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram is the best one. I keep the most active on there too. And all inquiries can be sent there too. So at KB Jiu-Jitsu, Instagram, you can see me. Eventually I'll get off my ass and start doing reels again. When I want to perform and like do all the funny videos and stuff like that, it's also heavily based on my mental health.
Yeah, right.
Ooh, right. So, but that's where it's at. So.
Is there anything else you would like to shout out? Any organization that you work with or anything like that besides just your Instagram?
I'm always thankful for my sponsors, like especially Act Control, like Control Industries, they've been with me since day one. Like when they were just starting off in Arizona back in 2011, I was one of their first athletes, and I'm still with them now. It's like, and I can only speak so much about like how appreciative I've been of them for like over the years, and so it's like I always just control. All the time, all day. And of course, Submit the Stigma, which is Aaron Hurley's organization. Check them out. They do workshops trying to get everybody onto like mental health conscious academy. Just it helps give not necessarily owners, but it could be anyone in any academy, equipping them with the tools to help either teammates or students going through like mental health crisis. But like we're not professionals. So it's kind of like having the tools to kind of help navigate them so we can kind of calm down, knowing how to recognize signs if you feel like a teammate is, like going through a rough time, and then helping them like have those conversations or putting them in the right direction for professional help if needed. And so check out, Submit the Stigma. And I can't think off the top of my head. That's how I think. Maybe if I just wiggle my head enough, maybe
of the singer.
The information will get into my brain, and I can't.
They'll shake
think,
it free.
So.
Just where is it?
Yeah, just where is it? I don't know. I heard it works, but I can't think of it right now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. John, you got anything else?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching at home. And remember, no oil checks here. All right, guys. Thanks.
I don't know why he makes me do it every time.